Alright, hey everyone, I thought this would be a fun video, just kind of showing where we started with sawmilling, where we are now, how we got from point A to point B, and I am doing this during nap time, so I got my baby monitor here. Yes, I'm sitting on the tractor so I don't disturb the little ones inside, and I'm holding the camera because our tripod was in the room with one of our little ones who's sleeping. I didn't want to risk that. So anywho, and I thought it would be a fun video because you know, for everyone who has been with us for a while, just kind of recap things and put everything in one place. But then we gained a lot of subscribers from out of the woods, and I appreciate the shout out. Welcome to everyone who is new. So kind of just recapping for y'all. So we started, well, our very first experience milling was something that Charlie made. It was to mill 6x6 beams for the shop that we made back in Savannah, Georgia. That's kind of where we got into a lot of this, was in Savannah. And we milled, really a long story short, we took down the back neighbors had some pine trees that were leaning against their house. And so they were big old pine trees. We took those down for them, and then we took those logs. They didn't have any use for them, but they wanted them to be used, and you know, just not in their backyard rotting. So kind of a win for win. We took them and then milled them into 6x6 beams. Those were used for like the framing of the shop. We put up the shop in Savannah. It was like a Kwanzaa hut sort of thing, and they were used for the framing for those barn doors. So that was something that Charlie did.
So I made this. Part of it was cheapness, part of it was because I couldn't find something like this on the market. I got two adjustments here. Basically, I've got two bolts, and I can adjust these. And so that gives me two things. I can adjust the pitch of the blade, and I can also adjust the depth.
And some people were like, you should market this and whatever, and it was a good idea. Like, we just never did anything with it. So then we were like, okay, let's do the chainsaw mill, because it's all over the YouTubes, and you know, it's fairly inexpensive to buy them, you know, especially compared to like a Wood-Mizer or something where you're starting around 4,000, I believe is the entry model. So a couple $100, but this thing, and I don't like to talk bad about people, but this thing was terrible, okay? And you do expect it to be slower, okay? We actually did a side-by-side comparison, and it was comparing the Wood-Mizer when Charlie first got the thing. So he was a complete novice, had no idea what he was doing, and it was comparing it with both myself and Charlie pushing the chainsaw mill. And there's just, even though Charlie had no idea what he was doing on the Wood-Mizer, there's just no comparing the two, okay? The amount of efficiency that you gain is just, and you don't have like the vibrations on your arm. It doesn't wear you out. It's all over, like the noise. We had an electric version in Savannah for the Wood-Mizer, and there's just no comparing them. And we did that video, we got a lot of backlash from this video, and it was Charlie's idea to do that side-by-side comparison, and I was like, what's the point? Of course the Wood-Mizer's gonna win. And he was like, that's my point. It's because he was tired of seeing all these videos of like, oh, I went and did a whole house out of a chainsaw mill, and if you want to do that, by all means go ahead, but it is not practical at all. Like, if you want to do it, go for it, be happy and do it, but it's not efficient. There's no other way to say that. It's just, if you want to do an entire house, like a whole log cabin or something like that, it's just not efficient. And that was his point of the video. Anywho, also we ran into quite a few issues with the mill that we got. I can't remember the company of it, but I know that they were based out of Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, this thing was out of square so bad. I don't know why they shipped it. I don't know if like they didn't even test it. And the thing about it is that we all make mistakes, but your customer service has to back up your product, okay? And we were so disgusted with their customer service. We sent them photos, and they didn't want to hear that they were wrong at all, that they messed up. They were like, this thing works perfect, what are you talking about? And like, even though we sent them photos of it being completely out of whack, they were like, it's fine. And we were like, no. So it was just a hot mess. And after that, and we have been talking about it for a while, after that we got our Wood-Mizer. So that was the LT50 Wide, and it was a great mill. What happened with that mill is that we sold it with the house in Savannah. It was one of the selling points of that property, was, we're going to wrap it into the mortgage sort of thing. So we got the mill, we did the sawmill shed. And then we put the mill together, we started milling for a while, and the paint on the mill just started flaking off. And I don't bring this up to talk bad about Wood-Mizer. I actually am trying to talk good about them, because we just showed them the photos and they were like, ooh, that's not right. And so what had happened was is that they were using a new process, a new company to do their powder coating or whatever they were doing. It was a new process and it didn't work out, and then they switched to somebody else, and but they replaced the whole thing. I mean, they came out, it was Nathan and his team came out from Atlanta. And replace the whole thing. And that's sort of what I'm saying, is that, we're all human, mistakes are going to be made, but it's how you handle it with your customer service that shows what sort of company you are. So we were thrilled with how they handled that, and after that we kept milling and it was no big deal. We had no paint issues at all. So when we were in Savannah, that's when Hurricane Matthew came through, and I tell you what, we were just like, it's when people talk about being prepared, when preparation meets opportunity or whatever they talk about, we were in that boat, okay? Because we had gotten the mill, I want to say this was back in January of whatever year it was, 2016 or something, and I want to say it was January. Anyway, so then Hurricane Matthew was around September or October, something like that, of that same year. But by that point we kind of had a rhythm with milling, and we were set up with the mill, and we kind of knew what we were doing a little bit, and we just started collecting logs. We met this gentleman, Bart of Hey Woodworking. Hey Bart, if you're watching, side note, I'll leave his stuff down below, but he does some gorgeous tables. But him and Charley, they just rocked and rolled, and it was like a two-man operation, one truck, one trailer. We did have a bigger gooseneck back in that time, but they just rocked and rolled at it. They just started collecting logs. I mean, it was like a 6 weeks period where no milling got done. They were just collecting and collecting and collecting, and we happened to have the space for it. The property we had in Savannah, it was around 12 acres, and the back spot with all the, around the shop was just clear, so we just had space to stack them up. And then we started milling, and we milled a lot of it on the Wood-Mizer. It did a great job, and some of it though we milled with Bart's chainsaw mill. He has a 5-foot chainsaw mill. So the Wood-Mizer, the LT50 Wide, if you're not familiar, it goes up to about 36 inches, but that's really pushing it. You got to have a very straight 36-inch log, perfectly really cylindrical sort of stuff. So it just shy of 3 feet is really what the reality is. But at any rate, so we had some logs though from Hurricane Matthew that were 4.5, 5 feet. You know, I mean, they were monsters, and so they milled them with the chainsaw, with Bart's chainsaw mill, and the two of them just rocked and rolled, and they divvied up the lumber, and we sold a lot of it, and Bart kept a bunch of it for his tables that he makes and other fine furniture, and that was a good time. And then we moved to the mountains. So we sold our LT50 Wide in Savannah, and then that was an electric mill. Highly recommend. Both Charlie and I, we loved the electric mill. It was super quiet to the point that, you know, I could be around it with Audrey as a baby, you know, and there was no issue. It was just super, super quiet. Now, coming to the mountains, that's just not very practical for people to move their logs through, you know, the mountains and all that sort of stuff. So we sold it with the house, and then we got the LT50. All right, we went up quite a few notches. People ask us all the time about different mills, and we're no means like experts in the Wood-Mizer line or anything like that, but the hydraulics are incredible, and the speed of the hydraulics are incredible. And so if you're somebody like a hobbyist or whatever, and you're just trying to not spend an arm and a leg at the lumber store because, you know, you enjoyed working but you're just tired of spending all that money on it, then get the LT. What's the entry level? Is it like the 10? I don't think they have a 5. I think it's the 10. I think it's around $4,000. And the thing about it is that the cut quality, it's more about your blade, what blades you're running, making sure you have your tension set correctly, and making sure you cut into fresh logs. If you're gonna set your logs out and you don't coat them, coat the ends, then it's just not gonna cut as well. It's not gonna be as good as the quality. So what I'm trying to say is that you can get the same quality cut if you know what you're doing, if you're running the right blades and you cut into fresh wood. You can get the same quality cut as you can on an. Alright, my battery died on me, but it was kind of getting hot out there anyway, so I'm moving it into the shade. And yeah, cut quality, it doesn't really matter like what mill you pick. The mill is just going to determine, well, one, your cost, and then just how much work, how much manual labor you're going to be putting into it, if it's going to require a tractor, or and how efficient you can be. So that's a whole other topic. And of course, what size logs you can mill. Like I said, that's a whole nother video. So yeah, we got the LT50 Wide, and we have been milling with that in the mountains, and there are a handful of places, even with it being portable, that because we're in the mountains, that we can't take it to. There's a handful of people who call us, you know, wanting us to do milling for them, and we just can't get it back there. That's not anything against Charlie, that's just the nature of the beast with living in the mountains. So that's kind of our journey for sawmilling in a nutshell. We've learned a lot along the way. We've met a lot of different people, whether, you know, woodworkers. You meet all sorts of types. Some very pleasant, and a handful not so much, but I think that's maybe an industry. So that's our experience with it, and I take it for what it's worth. I hope it's helpful or entertaining or whatever. And if you have questions, of course, put them down below. And we appreciate y'all for watching, welcoming all the new subscribers, and hope to catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.